In this Baldur's Gate 3 video, I'm going to be showing you 3 early game Ranger builds. These are up to level 6, so we've only gone that far in the game. And all 3 of these builds are basically 5 levels of one of the subclasses of Ranger and 1 level of something else. Because Rangers gain extra attack at level 5 and their subclass at level 3, it seems like you probably wouldn't multi-class your Ranger until after level 5, or you'd really be missing out on extra attack. So the first build we're going to take a look at is 5 levels of Hunter Ranger and 1 level of Druid. And what I really like about this is Hunters gain one of their best features at level 3. They're going to be able to pick either Colossus Slayer or Horde Breaker or Giant Killer, although I think they'll probably pick Colossus Slayer or Horde Breaker. And you can choose whichever you want here, whether you want a little bit more AoE or you'd rather, not have to worry about it. Colossus Slayer you just kind of use automatically anyway, so it's not bad. Particularly early on in the game where you only have 1 attack, it's, going to add 1d8 damage every turn. So it's really, really strong in my opinion, or almost every turn. And this is really the best feature of Hunter besides gaining Volley or Whirlwind attack at level 11. The level 7 passives that you gain are not that strong in my opinion. So if you're playing a Hunter, you're probably going to go like 3 levels or 11 levels in order to gain Volley and Whirlwind. And, you'll probably multi-class with something else. And the thing is though, it doesn't make a lot of sense early on in the game to cut out of Hunter after level 3 and miss out on extra attack, so we're taking 5 levels of Ranger for that. But if you had more levels, right, like if you're higher level, like level 8 or level 9 or something, you could take 3 levels of Hunter and then 5 or 6 levels of something like Monk or 5 or 6 levels of something like Fighter and still gain that extra attack. And also at level 5 of the Ranger, you're going to gain access to level 2 Ranger spells, which is great. There are some good ones. They're not the greatest, but they are still good. And why I like pairing this with Druid is because it gives you access to Shillelagh, which allows you to buff your melee weapon if it's like a staff or a club, making it use your Wisdom modifier for its attack and damage rolls. And that's really, really good in my opinion. And that allows you to sort of not go crazy with dexterity or strength on your Ranger, but instead focus more on Constitution and Wisdom and still use your melee attacks very effectively and still be able to cast your spells very effectively, both your Ranger spells and your Druid spells. It will also allow you to upcast any level 1 Druid spell that you know, like Thunderwave for instance, since you will have level 2 spell slots. And moving forward, if you took something like 7 levels of Druid, you'd have a lot of different spells that you could cast, and you'd have a lot of spell slots, and you'd still be able to get 2 attacks with extra attack, and you could still make use of, either Colossus Slayer or Horde Breaker every time you're in combat as well. So essentially what you're doing here, instead of taking 1 more level of Ranger in order to gain another Natural Explorer favorite enemy, you're basically gaining the stuff you'd gain from Druid, which is, more access to spells and being able to upcast those spells, and also giving you Shillelagh, which works really well with a melee-focused Ranger. And on the next build, we're going to take a look at 5 levels of Beastmaster and 1 level of Monk. And if you saw our Ranger class guide, you'll know that Beastmaster is a tough subclass to multi-class because your companion gets stronger as you level up in Beastmaster. And if you just take half your levels in Beastmaster and half your levels in something else, at some point as you get further on into the game and enemies become higher level, your companion is going to, drop off and it'll die easily, and its damage will be underwhelming and its abilities will be underwhelming. So it's, something kind of like you either need to go all in on Beastmaster or close to all in order to get the most benefit from that. And you gain other things from Ranger at this level, like you gain extra attack, level 2 spells with the Ranger, but you also gain Companion's Bond. And this is going to add your proficiency bonus to the armor class of your companion and also the damage rolls of the companion. That's going to make them a lot stronger. And also your companions at this level will gain more HP, and they will also gain usually another class feature at this level. So your companion in general is going to get stronger. You're going to make it stronger passively through Companion's Bond. You're going to gain extra attack, and you're still going to have access to Ranger level 2 spells. So that's definitely why you want to go at least level 5 here. And why I like Monk here is because it gives you martial arts, which allows you to use any melee weapon, except for 2-handed melee weapons and heavy melee weapons, with your dexterity instead of strength. So if you like using like a longsword or like a warhammer or something like that, or even a staff, something like that, and you want to use that, but you want to have dexterity instead of strength, it's great, right? Like that makes your melee better. It gives you more options. Like you could use like a longsword and shield with dexterity, and that would still allow you to use like a bow or crossbow at range effectively because you'd have high dexterity. So it gives you more options in terms of flexibility of weapons. On top of that, it's going to allow you to use your Wisdom bonus and add that to your armor class if you're not wearing armor. So if you have high dexterity and high Wisdom, you might actually come out better, not wearing armor, depending on what armor selection, what you have available. But that also becomes an option to you. It also gives you Ki and also access to Flurry of Blows. So you're going to be able to use your bonus action to use Flurry of Blows to deal even more damage, every short rest a couple of times. And probably what you would do this build over time is you'd probably take Beastmaster up to level 9 or something like that, and then you would finish fleshing it out with monk, you know, like open hand monk or something like that. 3 levels of that in order to have more ki and more flurries of blow, giving you patient defense eventually, giving you step of the wind eventually, and giving you deflect missiles eventually. Give you all of that stuff eventually as well. And that would still allow you to have a pretty strong companion and also have some benefits of the mod. So next we're going to take a look at 5 levels of Gloomstalker and 1 level of War Domain. You can see a theme here that you basically want to get at least a 5 if you're going Ranger early on in order to gain access to extra attack. And we have that here. We also have Dread Ambusher, which gives us higher initiative, so we usually get to go first in combat. Gives us a free attack at the beginning of combat that's extra damage. So you're actually going to have 3 attacks once you have extra attack at the beginning of combat. And because we've taken 1 level of War Domain, you can use your bonus action also for an attack. So theoretically, the very first turn of combat, you could make 4 attacks. That's a lot of attacks for this point of the game, and that's going to allow you to just shell out tons of damage. And because you can continue to use that bonus action to make free attacks, it's really strong. And clerics have good synergy with rangers because they also use wisdom to cast their spells. So cleric spells are going to benefit from the same stat that rangers use to cast their spells. So this would be a more wisdom focused build. And if you went higher with this build, you would probably continue to increase War Domain to gain access to more cleric spells and, you know, the channel divinity of the War Domain cleric as well. So that's going to give you lots of attacks in combat, lots of access to spells, whether those are offensive, defensive, that's kind of up to you. And you don't have to go War Domain here. I like it because of the, you know, bonus attack that you can do. And because, you know, you're wisdom focused as well, there's nice synergy. But you could go like Light Domain if you want more offense, or Tempest Domain if you want somewhere in the middle also, if you prefer like lightning spells. There are a lot of things you could absolutely do here. But the general idea is that you're kind of like a hybrid spellcaster that has lots of attacks every turn, which makes you extremely deadly. So that wraps up our video on 3 early game ranger builds. I hope I extrapolated them enough so you can see where I would go with them if I went higher, and you can kind of make decisions about that. And I hope I made a good case here for why, if you're going to go like 3 levels into a ranger at the beginning of the game to get a subclass, why you would at least go 5 levels to gain extra attack, particularly with Beastmaster, because they gain a good subclass feature here and their companions gain stronger. They have even more reason to go to level 5. But Gloomstalker and Hunter, you know, you really want that extra attack. I think if you multi-classed from level 3 and took 3 levels of something else, you missing out on that extra attack is actually going to make you less powerful than if you took it. And that's just kind of the general nature of martial classes that gain an extra attack, is like at the beginning of the game when you don't have as many levels, you know, you definitely want to make sure you get that extra attack, and then you can kind of see what you can do from there. Stay tuned, we have 3 more class videos coming, including Barbarian, Cleric, and Druid. I can't wait to do those. If you guys have any more tips about Ranger, make sure you leave them in the chat, or if you have questions, leave them there as well, and I will respond as soon as I can.